Welcome. It's Friday over the noon hour here in KOFO land, 1220, 103.7 FM, and listen live always on KOFO.com. To our installment, we've been waiting all week to bring back the CEO of East Kansas Agri-Energy, Bill Pracht, for our East Kansas Agri-Energy Farm Report. And Bill, it is so great to have you back on. There is a lot going on in the ag vector this week.
That's right. Just things are happening every day, and farmers are out working hard, getting their crops put in the ground, and so there's a lot going on, John.
Bill, let me just segue right away here, and of course we welcome in all of our listeners from Franklin, Anderson, Lynn, Miami, Osage, Johnson, and Douglas counties. You're listening to us as far away as Emporia, the capital of Topeka, Rock Chalk, Jayhawk, Lawrence, just up north here, 15 minutes, over to Baldwin City, home of the Wildcats, to Wellsville, to Princeton, Paola, Osage, Osawatomie, Gardner, Garnett, all over the fruited plains here. This station, KOFO, Brad Howard's Enterprise, the country music giant, your news and sports and weather fulcrum here on the east central plains of Kansas, as well as your official licensee of the hopefully soon to be improving again. They're ready for another spurt to go on the upswing. Kansas City Royals baseball team. Bill, we've had a lot of rain, a lot of precip this week. We talked a little bit about moisture last week. Is it going to end? And are we still happy at this juncture to be refilling that water table?
We should probably never turn down rain. And, sometimes it gets frustrating when, you only get a few days to get something done. But looks like after this weekend, we're going to have a dry week. And that should give the farmers in the area enough time to get finished up their cropping practices here. And always in 2 weeks, we'll be needing another rain here in eastern Kansas. So it can get a little frustrating, but after this weekend, it looks like we're going to have a good stretch of weather after that.
I think so. Even maybe better than the folks at Disney World down in Orlando. They're scheduled for rain for the next week yet. So it is that time of year, April showers and May flowers. It was a glorious Memorial Day. Did you have a nice Memorial Day weekend, Bill?
We did. We had a family reunion, a little one, and then grandkids were up. And so that's always a good time. And we had a great week. Beautiful.
It's such an important weekend to remember those.
Absolutely.
We stand on the shoulders of so many greats. And speaking of greats, what a fantastic finish to that Indy 500 auto race, Bill.
I didn't watch much of it, but I did see that last lap. And
three different leaders on that last lap. That's different right. Leaders.
Yes. And when I was younger, as a kid growing up, I watched that race from start to the end.
Yeah.
A.J. Foyt was my favorite driver.
Absolutely. There was a bevy of years there was A.J. Foyt and Alan Bobby Unser winning several, and Johnny Rutherford, and you had those early 70s. The great radio voice Paul Page did the radio call from Indy before ABC had even acquired any television rights through Wide World of Sports. That's how far back I go, Bill. I can remember listening to Mario Andretti's one and only Indy 500 win in Memorial Day 1969. I had that emblazoned in my memory as a young child for three reasons. Number one, listened to that race with my dad. Number two, we listened to that race on our patio in Marion, Iowa, which we had just purchased some redwood pine patio furniture with an umbrella with the little fishing reel handle on it. And we thought we were just, it couldn't get better than that. And of course, that was the same year that we had in the spring purchased our family car, which, Bill, it was a candy apple red Carmen Ghia Volkswagen Coupe. The old traditional, not the Beetle, not the Bug, but the sporty coupe. Looked like something Maxwell Smart would drive. It had the engine in the trunk and the tire up front. And I remember the sticker on that car, $1,995. You could buy some combines for a lot less than $1 million back in '69. And what was land going for back then, Bill? How times have changed.
Oh, yes, it has. Most certainly has changed. I think I bought a small piece of land from an uncle. It would have been in 73 and gave $300 an acre.
Wow.
They'd be worth 10 times that now. So times have changed, and you couldn't buy a set of tires for your Volkswagen car for $1,000.
Isn't that the truth, Bill Pracht? Bill is the Chief Executive Officer over at East Kansas Agri-Energy, that wonderful ethanol plant, renewable fuels plant in Garnett. And Bill, how are things going at your plant and in the ethanol world?
It's good in the ethanol world. We're seeing very good profitability, getting good pricing on ethanol, corn oil, and our distillers, all three at the same time. And so it's pretty universal that everybody in our industry is doing well. And, we still have some wind at our back with a recent E15 House vote. We got a long way to go in the Senate. We've talked about that before. And then tomorrow, Governor Kelly's signing a tax credit bill for infrastructure improvements for stations to convert to E15, and that'll be
talk
a
about that for just a second, if you would, Bill. That's key and that's big. And talk about that.
Well, it allows station owners that want to upgrade their pumps. There's not much difference in E15 infrastructure, but it allows them a tax credit to do that. It's for kind of, pushing it to the smaller individual station owner. That's where they're trying to get the money to, and so that they can compete with their competitors, the big time stores down the street. And it was a bipartisan piece of legislation that passed the Kansas House and Senate, and Governor Kelly was gracious enough to sign it, or will be tomorrow, the official signing day tomorrow of putting it in. And so we need all of that to increase our demand. You got to have the product available. And so
Right.
This helps station owners have the product available.
Well said, Bill. Bill Pracht here with us, the czar of East Kansas Agri-Energy, that wonderful ethanol renewable fuels plant. And Bill, if we can, of course, it's still Friday here and markets are trading over the noon hour, but Thursday was a good day for grains. On Thursday, corn was up, soybeans were up, wheat was up, soybean meal was up, both for the July and August and September readings, and even Class 3 milk was up. Bill, is that just a one-off, one day in the life of, or are we starting to see a little more swagger in the step of the ag community based on some recent happenings?
I don't know if we're, stepping up anywhere. We've been trading in pretty tight ranges in the corn and soybean markets. And what we've just seen us now kind of bouncing off the low end of those ranges. They're 30 to 50 cent ranges. And so I think for us to get out of that range, we're going to have to see a significant dry weather event in the corn belt, soybean belt, sometime here in the next 6 weeks for us to get out of that range. And as long as we're trading in that range, we're just going to see back and forth markets, and the weather will drive that direction. And then it could possibly, if everything's perfect, we'll see, maybe go to the downtrend a little bit more. But I don't think that's going to happen really here. It just seems like the market wants to go up, but there's, we had the news last week of the possible trade deal with China, and we still haven't heard anything from the Chinese about that, and we probably won't until they make their first order. So every day I read where, people are waiting for that. Well, we don't know when that's going to come. The market will react when it does, and so it'll be another day in the day when that happens.
Here with Bill Pracht. Bill, livestock, any ruminations on your part about cattle, live and feeder cattle, lean hogs, anything big going on that we should be aware of?
The cattle on feed placement report was last Friday, and placements were up 2%. I thought that was surprising a little bit. We hear about there being more heifer retention. So maybe that's not the case, being the feedlots are up, placements are up for the quarter. So the cattle market was up today, but it was down pretty hard the end of last week and the first part of this week. And then, John, we're still hearing about a lot of really dry weather in Western Kansas and the Sand Hills in Nebraska and Colorado. So we're certainly not going to see herd expansions in those parts of the country because they're just trying to keep the herds they got. And you feel for those guys. They've had a lot of drought, and it's something that nobody wants to deal with. And just up until recently, we're having one of the worst droughts in the southeast part as well. They're getting a little relief this week, but it's much needed. That's for sure.
Yeah, our friends up in Nebraska, terrible fire issues up there in the western part of the state, and indeed it's been so dry. I hope Lake McConaughey doesn't just get all swallowed up into the ground out there by Ogallala, Bill. Those folks have drought activity up north, don't they?
Yes, they do. And I mean, some of our local firemen were out in Western Kansas battling a couple fires last week. So, they still have those risks are there every day until they get some significant turn. And, when you're having fires here in 1st of June, that could mean for a long, long summer.
And of course, KOFO here is your source for all of the burn warnings that are placed during the summer months. We go on a county by county basis, and that includes our live coverage on weekend mornings. So stay tuned to KOFO. That's not the case this week, though. Plentiful precipitation. Bill, a lot going on the political side nationally. All this touches on us, but fascinating. The FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, launches a formal investigation into the fertilizer industry as farmers say they're fed up. And Andrew Ferguson, who's the FTC chair, he talked about a formal investigation just yesterday, Thursday, into the concentrated market and the pricing with respect to fertilizers, and drew a vigorous standing ovation from farmers representing 18 states. Maybe they're getting mad as heck and they're just not going to take it anymore, Bill.
Well, we take it every year. And, and I think, with the what's happening in the Middle East this time with the fertilizer price raises in the U.S. were, to me, were just those few companies able to pad their pockets. And thank goodness most guys had their fertilizer on. But when anhydrous ammonia is made out of natural gas for the most part, and natural gas is, trading at less, at a $3 level, and there's no reason why anhydrous should have taken $150, $200 jump in price just as soon as the war started. Granted, there's world demand as well, but all the demand in the U.S. was practically done, and the stocks were here, and there was just no reason. And there's a few big companies control the fertilizer industry, and I've heard a lot of analysts say that they know a farmer's bottom line better than a farmer does. They know exactly what he'll pay, and that seems to be the case some days.
I think what Bill just said in the last minute or two is worth flagging for future in memoria, Sean Torres, because this will be something that we'll go back to. I think is very prescient on Bill's part to highlight that. Does it really have to be this way? And that's going to become something for the archive vaults. It's amazing, but that's the first formal federal investigation with potential antitrust enforcement and subpoena power that there's ever been for this industry.
That's right. We've seen it in the meat industry, in the packing industry where 4 big entities control that as well, and they're under investigation again for high beef prices. And I don't know how many millions of dollars that they've paid in penalties for, to not have the admission of guilt in prior price fixing probes into the meat industry. So I wouldn't be surprised if the fertilizer guys said, well, the meat guys get away with it, we might as well be too.
Yeah, a Farm Journal Ag Web in the reporting of Tyne Morgan, who's been doing a good job covering this. It's fascinating for some perspective, Bill. It says farmers attending this event argued that fertilizer prices have remained historically elevated long after the supply chain shocks of 21 and 22 eased, even as commodity prices and farm profitability declined. According to organizers, fertilizer prices have risen more than 150% since 2020. While net farm income has fallen sharply from recent highs.
No doubt about it. And, paying those prices, is part of the reason the income's falling, and it's just not for fertilizer. It's everything we use has went up a lot in the last, since COVID has been over with. Those things are making it hard on farmers, and everywhere you look, everybody talks about the farm income. Beth Ford, the CEO of Land O'Lakes, out this week, saying that she's seeing the farmers in the most dire straits than they've been in quite some time.
Here with the great Bill Pracht, East Kansas Agri-Energy. Their report to Kansas and the Midwest on KOFO 1220, 103.7 FM, and pick this program up. Tell your friends on our podcast. Go to KOFO.com and click on that podcast key. So Bill, South Dakota farmer Trent Kubik was quoted. It was very fascinating, but he said we were paying $200 to $300 a ton for urea in 2020. That jumped to over $900 a ton in 2022 when corn prices were high. And at least back then, corn prices were also elevated. So there was somewhat of a relationship there, he says. He says, now we're still sitting at $700 to $800 fertilizer. The price of corn has not gone up. There's no correlation anymore. That's what's leaving us with very few answers and very little control of the situation. He said he held off buying a lot of fertilizer this year because at the time, it just did not make economic sense to buy at those levels. I kept saying the math isn't working out. Eventually it's going to come down, but it just doesn't. And that's the problem, isn't it, Bill?
That is the problem. And let's be honest, what's helped us in the last couple of years is we've had record yield.
Right.
So that's, but record yields keep corn prices down. So that's kind of the give and take. You get, you're still only going to get so many dollars per acre. And it gets back to knowing what your bottom line is. But a lot of farmers want to stay in that same rotation they're in, and they're willing to pay that little extra to do that. But it depends on your financial situation. If you don't got a lot of equity in your operation, then the prices sure are noticeable a lot more than a guy that's well established and kind of eat that for a year or two. But you just can't keep going to that well all the time. You don't want to, and that's what the farm economy is trying to dig out of, and so we don't have to do that.
Yep, Bill, it's amazing. Some of my memories that go back. This is really, we're at 40 years from the apex of the great farm crisis of the mid-'80s. I remember those very terrible days. I remember some of the bankers at Hills outside Iowa City being shot during a disturbance there. And, Bill, it's just amazing. In some respects, you see these cycles that go through, and then certain things that just continue to change, like the price of land. Bill, I remember walking beans for farmer Ralph Blackford in northwest of Marion, Iowa. Now that's golf courses and all residential development. And we don't walk beans anymore, do we, Bill?
No, we don't. We used to do that too. So we don't do that, thankfully not. But for as many beans are in the country, and there's not near the labor force out there looking to make a buck on a hot day in the summertime like there was then. So I don't know that we'd have very many takers for bean walk.
I agree, Bill. It was a different era. The summer of 77, I got my driver's license, and I was driving out there at 5 a.m, and we would listen to Paul Harvey and Chicken Man and drink some soda pop, and we would start cutting at those corn stalks when it was still dark. And by the time it got very hot at the noon hour, we were ready to go cool off in the pool. But we got a lot of work done in those days, all spread out in single row formation all across the fields there, Bill. And makes me kind of sad that some of that's been developed now and there's no more cornfields there.
That's right. And that was pretty darn good land too.
The blackest dirt that you ever would see, Lynn County, Iowa there.
That makes
Bill, I want to
pulling the weeds easy. That black dirt,
that's absolutely the truth of it. Bill, want to talk about another issue here, just the tight margins in general. Tight margins are forcing Corn Belt farmers to slash their inputs. We're really dealing with that, aren't we? I mean, from dropping phosphorus to switching from corn acres to soybeans, growers are navigating a difficult recipe for success as fertilizer prices remain high and grain markets soften, as Rhonda Brooks reports.
That's right. And I I think it brings into mind, we're seeing more soil testing now and variable rate fertilizers put on. And I think, we know what it takes to grow a crop. So if you have to, you don't have to put any extra on, just put on exactly what you need. We're seeing a lot of work in the biological space. I don't know that they're proven enough, but there's certainly a lot of them getting tried. Maybe we'll see a breakthrough in some of that coming up. But, you talk to those companies and they all, think they could do it, but it's still kind of a unproven territory for the most part. And so those things will help if we get something that works good. And so guys are just gonna have to make that decision, cutting back a couple of years or not. And most of us, if you kept up with good fertility on your land, you'll be able to cut back and use a little bit less and try to get by.
Yeah, Bill Pracht, well said. There are these cost-cutting measures that these farmers have been adopting, of course. I mean, it's an unsustainable cost structure, and some are very aggressively scaling back how much they're applying. Others are maybe moving from corn in favor of soybeans. There's a little bit less of a capital investment up front there. But, there was talk about one of the ag farmers that was interviewed, unexpected evidence of this, at his Pioneer Seed Dealers facility, pallets of seed corn stacked and sitting in the warehouse, Bill.
I've heard that too, but but my Pioneer dealer, told me if we needed to replant, we wouldn't get the same numbers that we bought the first time. They had a shortage of corn, and fortunately, we didn't have to replant much corn. But what we did, we weren't able to use the varieties we'd picked up the first time, and usually you're able to do that. So I'm kind of surprised that they've got a whole lot left over. They always have some left for sure, and so those things will change. And that's kind of back and forth on how their crops turn out, for the growers that grow their hybrids for them too.
Bill, does unpredictable weather factor into this? And what about fungicides and herbicides? Those also are impacted, aren't they, in terms of these cost input situations?
Absolutely. I just read something this morning about, the fungicides are pretty popular, and necessary in the Corn Belt, probably more than they are where we're here in Eastern Kansas. But, we don't have the tar spot issues. We don't have much, just a little bit of gray leaf spot here. And so it's not really as important. And here we don't see the financial benefit of putting the fungicides on near as much as they do where they have this chronic problem year after year after year. But those fungicides do work where those problems prevail. That's for sure. And, but they grow 30% more corn per acre on those acres where they're used a lot than we do here. And a lot of that, that helps, offset the cost of the fungicide too. And you have more to lose on a bigger 10%, 200 bushel corn's a lot different 10% of 100 bushel.
Indeed, guys. We're so proud of Bill Pracht, Chief Executive Officer of East Kansas Agri-Energy, LLC. They're that wonderful ethanol renewable fuels plant there in Garnett, and so good for our ag families. Bill, as we continue our report, want to just talk a little bit about, we've been visiting before, we talked about glyphosates and Bayer. Bayer now has been sued for allegedly monopolizing the U.S. market for GMO corn seeds. Now, we've talked about Bayer's legal difficulties with respect to glyphosates, but now suit for monopolizing the U.S. market for GMO corn seeds. What's your take on that? That's an Iowa-based Latham Quality that alleged Bayer used predatory anti-competitive tactics to monopolize the U.S. GE corn seed market and stifle generic competition to protect billions in, quote, ill-gotten, unquote, allegedly, profits.
That's right. And, I don't know if we know what a monopoly is. It seems like if you don't have over a third of the market, you're not a monopoly. But when you get to these traits that are trait specific, that's been developed by a company and we'll use glyphosate, there's been generics of that for quite some time. So I don't know that they don't have a monopoly on that trait, but if they have new traits coming out, they're going to try to protect them certainly as much as they can. And I don't know that all the research it takes to bring a trait to marketplace. They need to benefit from doing that research. After that, it's hard to tell. And so then as if somebody wants it, and maybe Bayer wants too much to sell them that trait. But if they're the only guy in town, they're the only guy in town. So those are the things they got to work through. And it just seems like every time a new trait comes out, we have that very same problem, no matter what the company. And Bayer seems to be an easy target now with, all the problems with the glyphosate, with the Roundup issue. But we got to remember, they bought from Monsanto. So that was a free market move, and they went out and did it, and now it's costing them. And I know they've spent a lot more money defending that than they ever dreamed they would. So they're going to certainly protect anything else they have that they think is proprietary as much as
expert analysis from Bill Pracht. He talked about this earlier with Bayer and perhaps some miscalculation on all the legal ramifications they would have by purchasing Monsanto. Bill, we're coming up toward the end. Wow, what a fast half hour this has been. But Taylor Leach is reminding us school's out, farm safety is in. And school is done now, graduations and progressions up the levels of what year in school you are. But we got young people heading into summer farm work. And Bill, now's the time to emphasize safety and put those checks in place before kids retake up those responsibilities on the farm. Any words of wisdom there on the importance of getting back to basics and safety first for our youth on the farms?
Yeah, our youth and our adults. We know farming is one of the most dangerous occupations there is. And then you get kids out of school and you hire, if you're a farmer, hire summer help from kids in town. You've got to have, the utmost in safety to keep those, to keep them as safe as we possibly can. And even if it's just, when the weather turns back dry, driving down a gravel road that's got a lot of dust on it, to make sure you let the dust clear, before you pull back out into the main line of traffic. Just simple things like that. And the most simplest thing, recommendation, if used right, can make a heck of a lot of difference. And that's got to be the number one thing when you got young people out there helping you, trying to make an extra buck, helping you out. And we all got to be aware of that.
Well said, guys. I'll tell you, there's a reason you listen to Bill's wisdom. There's a reason why the East Kansas Agri-Energy report is the breakout hit of original programming for KOFO. It's our number one original program here on our weekday lineup. And Bill, you're popular. People want this up on the podcast. Congratulations. We've been doing this now for a couple of months. I would say we've gotten out of the gate and people really like the updates. They like the material. And of course, you're a bon vivant. You have a lot of experiential wisdom, both advocating for us and essentially lobbying for the American farm family. I thank you for that. And as always, I thank you for joining us this week on our Friday recap during primetime drive time over Friday noon hour. You got the Paul Harvey, Ronald Reagan catbird seat time zone, Bill Pracht. What do you think of that?
I think that's just all right. So that'll be good. And next week, I'll be at the Fuel Ethanol Workshop in St. Louis. So we'll be reporting from there next.
Our live embed, Bill Pracht. If he's there, it's news. And we will see you guys a week from now. Thanks to all of you for listening here. Have a great weekend. Be safe, be smart, be good, be strong. And remember those great renewable fuels. They're lean, they're clean, and they're green, especially our ethanol, bringing additional revenue vectors to our ag families, safeguarding our food supply by concentrating it in the hands of American families, not foreign corporatists. And also, Bill, every dollar here is one less dollar we have to worry about in the Strait of Hormuz and all those crazy shenanigans going over there in the Middle East for the last half century.
There's no doubt about that, and there's different news out of there every day. One day we're about ready to open it up, and the next day we're closed. So the rest of the world needs it open a lot more than the U.S. We're thankful for that we're not under that gun like we were in the in the 70s, late 70s. So we know how bad that was. So it's a lot, at least better for the U.S. I mean, prices are high, fuel prices, and I seen a snapshot, John, of a gasoline station in California where diesel was $7.99 and gasoline was $6.59. So we're still pretty lucky here in the Midwest.
Yep, that good clean living in the heartland, at least we hope. Bill Pracht, great to be with you as always. We look forward to hearing you reporting next week in St. Louis. For all of us here, including my great studio engineer, Sean Torres, go to KOFO.com, click podcasts, and grab that East Kansas Agri-Energy report and queue it up for your friends. Until next time, bye-bye.